welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming out here tonight. Really appreciate it, especially on a beautiful weather night, which we haven't had too many of those lately. Finally got some relief there, so that's excellent. Nice to see you all. I'm Brent Todd. I'm the Ward 1 City Councilor here in Penacook. And I want to give a big thank you to the Penacook Village Association for arranging this community meeting to discuss tonight the development project of 100 acres of property, which is in Penacook. It's actually in Ward 1 in the Merrimack Valley School District. It is the property that is adjacent to the Concord Monitor building. That's the easiest way to pinpoint it, actually. And so we'll hear a lot about that tonight from our presenters, and we'll get to that in a moment. I just wanted to note that there is a sign-up sheet also on a yellow notepad for those of you who have not seen that. It's going around. Okay, very good. So if you want to be on the list to get further information about this project as it unfolds, please put your name on that list, and you will be on the distribution list for that. I also want to recognize we have a couple of Penacook Village Association board members. I know Al Brack is here, and Terry Maxwell, and Carol Palmer are here, so thank you very much. We also have a couple of city councilors. We have Earl Pierce, and we have Councilor McNamara as well. Thank you for coming out. We have our Representative Steve Shurtleff here. We have our representative from Ward 2, Connie Lane, here as well. Thank you very much for coming out. And Art, I'm sorry, my gosh, how could I do that? You're sitting right there. And Art is here as well. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. I had a little mind blip there for a moment. And we also have a couple of Merrimack Valley School Board, but we have Jess Wheeler-Russell from the Merrimack Valley School Board. She's here as well. Have I missed anybody? Because I don't want to miss anybody now that I've already done that once. So thank you all. I'm hiding in the back. We do have, no, he doesn't want to know. Matt Walsh is here. I'll say no more. So I also want to just give a quick thank you, in addition to the Penacook Village Association, to our friends at Concord TV who are recording the event. So you can watch it as many times as you like. We'll be sending around the link to the video as soon as it is prepared. Also, of course, our thanks to Fred Regan and the Merrimack Valley School District for offering up this space so that we can have this meeting with you here this evening. I would say also, just as a note, the Penacook Village Association wanted me to send out a note that they are always looking for volunteers and for board members. There's going to be a board meeting coming up in a few months. And they're especially looking for someone that has treasurer capabilities. They're looking for a new treasurer. So anyone that might be interested in taking that on, it's not a ton of work, but it is an important job. And so feel free to come and see me afterwards or one of the board members, and we'd be happy to discuss that with you. Also, I am sending out a newsletter also on a regular basis with news about this project and about other projects going on in Penacook. For those of you who are not on that list and would like to receive those emails, come and speak to me afterwards in the meeting. I have a business card, and you can just write to me, and you'll get on that list as well. So with that, let's turn over the discussion to the experts about this project. We have several of them here this evening, and I'll just introduce. We have Kevin Lacasse, who is with New England Family Housing, and we have Ed Roberge. Some of you will remember, you're not going back in time. Some of you may remember Ed Roberge. He's no longer with the City of Concord, but he is with an engineering firm called Stantec, and so they are working on this project. We have Dean Navaroli. Sorry, Dean. I was going to say Dean Williams. Dean Navaroli is here, and he's the real estate agent who's also been working with the transaction. And so those are the main players you're going to be hearing from tonight. And we're going to start things off by turning it over to Kevin. So again, thank you very much for coming. And you guys set the tone of the meeting. If you want to hold questions or whatever, you just give out the instructions and
sure.
We'll go from there.
Okay.
Thank you very much. With that,
all right.
They are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Todd. Thank you guys all for coming. I appreciate it. We're here to talk about this exciting project. We're very happy to bring it here, and I'll talk a little bit more about me and the company that is going to be doing this project. But first, I'm going to turn it over to Dean to kind of set the stage for that.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I'm really excited to present this to you. I think it's important to Kevin. Public outreach is important to really get your feedback and input. So this is our first foray into sort of laying out what we're conceptually planning. So Lindsay, if you could go to the next slide. So, and the next one. All right, so who am I? So I know some of you from other projects that we've worked on, but I'm the principal of William and Reeves Commercial Real Estate. So we specialize in commercial real estate investment, brokerage, and development. So our office is based out of Bedford, New Hampshire, and we work throughout Massachusetts and New Hampshire, but we really focus most of our attention on New Hampshire. We have holdings in Concord, Bedford, Londonderry, and as well as Portsmouth. So this is what we hope to be our next exciting project to be working with Kevin and Ed on. So all right. So when I was retained by the Concord Monitor, I'm staying in front of it for a reason, actually. So we looked at the project itself. So what do we have for the real estate? We have a 77,000 square foot purpose-built building for the Concord Monitor. They had their printing press there, and in their offices where the reporters also hung their hat. Then we had in total about 103 acres. So the more we looked at it, the more we realized that in order to sell the property or to really place it in its highest and best use, we should probably look at what can we do with the site. So one of the things that we can do on the acreage, on the side acreage, so here is the Concord Monitor, Sewell Falls Road is here. So this is roughly 8.21 acres where the Monitor sits. Hayward Brook kind of cuts it off or separates it from the rest of the land. But we just did a massing study and said, what can we do? What can we potentially build here that's allowed by right? So the land is zoned industrial. So we could put a very large or a series of large industrial buildings on the site. So coincidentally, as we were going through this evaluation process, there was a very large distribution company that was in the market looking for somewhere between land that they could build a building somewhere between 600 and 800,000 square feet. So this is a building we could fit up to 700,000 square feet. So we looked at this, and I'll say that the Concord Monitor, the owners of the Concord Monitor, looked at this with us, and we just didn't feel like this was not their favorite option. So we looked at, well, what else could we do? Well, we could look at mixed use, which to the Concord Monitor and myself, that seemed a lot more palatable. It seemed a lot more beneficial not only to the community but also to the land itself. So if you've ever had the opportunity to walk through this land and you stand on these bluffs and you look to the west, you'll get it right away. So just having a large industrial building that's probably not, that would not be open to the public. You wouldn't have any access to the river. You wouldn't have any access to the woods or any of the features of the land. It'd just be a massive building, a sea of asphalt, and a lot of truck traffic, whether it goes to Sewell's Falls or north to exit 17, the Hoyt Road, Whitney Road. So this wasn't necessarily our favorite option. So we started thinking through more of what the alternatives could be, and we did a very preliminary multi mixed use concept, and that is actually where Kevin comes in, and I have no desire to steal his thunder because there is a lot there, hopefully not literally, but it's an exciting project. I'm actually thrilled to be a part of it, and that's not me just being a broker. It's really kind of a cool project overall. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Okay. Yeah, that sets it up. So I'll just first start off telling you a little bit about myself and our company and kind of get into the project here. So some of you guys may know me. Again, my name's Kevin, and New England Family Housing is our company. So I formed it in 2004 from New Hampshire. It's a New Hampshire-based company. We're a developer as well as property management company. So we currently own and manage several hundred units throughout New Hampshire, and we've done some developments of workforce housing projects. We've done some public-private partnerships as well as some subdivision stuff. Since then, we've kind of done some expansion out of the state. We've got some holdings in Houston, Texas, as well as North Carolina, and as of next week in New Orleans. And with me, I did forget to introduce, my son Spencer is with me and my daughter Lindsay. They both work now for us full-time as well as we continue to expand. So it is a family business. We're, like I said, based in New Hampshire, born and raised and grew up here. So that's why, I mean, New Hampshire is our main focus. So even though we're doing stuff out of state, we really want to continue to do stuff here in New Hampshire. So if you could go to the next slide. So before I get into this, the project is, as Dean mentioned, north of the Concord Monitor building. And what kind of got us excited about it, so we were looking for a project, another development project here in New Hampshire. And we looked at some land in Laconia. And then through mutual friends, I met Dean and looked at the Concord Monitor building because that was on the market, in the hopes of maybe doing some type of conversion into housing. So we went through the building and looked at it, and it really doesn't lend itself well to that type of repurposing of that building. But then we got into the piece of land before that, and I instantly knew, okay, this is a great project here. So it's going to consist of a mixed-use project, so there's going to be some commercial and retail components to it, as well as some self-storage, and the bulk of it's going to be housing. And the housing is going to be a mix of housing with product for sale, as well as market-rate apartments for rent, as well as a workforce housing component as well. So if you can, go to the next slide, Lindsay. Next one. Oh, actually, just kind of pause it there. So just want to get into some of the, some of the reasons for this. So we all know New Hampshire is in a housing crisis, right? So the vacancy rate across the state is less than 1%. It's been talked about in the news. Merrimack County is within the lowest percentile of available units throughout the state. So to put it in context, what they consider a balanced housing market is a 5% vacancy rate, or 1 out of every 20 apartment units on the market would be available at any given time for somebody going to look to buy a house. Right now in Merrimack County, it's 1 out of every 333 houses that's available for housing. It's that bad. So how does this impact us right here in Penacook? Because this is a state problem, right? It's not our problem. Well, I'm sure a lot of you guys go out to eat once in a while. Have you gone out to eat recently and saw that, oh, well, you got to wait an extra 20 minutes because there's not enough servers to be able to serve your food? Or you go to a store and, you're looking for something and you're looking for some help and, there's just no help available for that. Or let's say, you got to set a doctor's appointment and it's kind of an emergency thing and they say, well, we don't have any openings for the next 6 months to a year. Well, that's going to affect the local people here. So, one of the other points is rents. So if you live in Penacook now, it's great. You've got a place to stay. But as, this demand continues, the rents are going to continue to be driven up. So unfortunately, there's people that could be pushed out of being able to rent in this area and be forced away from their home just to drive to areas that have lesser rent levels. So there's, a lot of these things that this housing market issue really kind of, attacks at a local level. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Ed to kind of walk through the project. And after that, we'll open it up for questions and kind of be ready to answer anything that you guys might have. Then, because like we said, this is really a conceptual phase. So we are looking for input from, the public. And that's why we're here today, because we are conceptual at this point in the project. So, all right.
All right, thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Councilor Todd and the PBA for coordinating this meeting for us. This is really good. It's good to hear kind of the evolution or the process that has started here. So I know a lot of folks in the room, and to that I say hello. It's great to see you folks again, but those that don't know me, my name is Ed Roberge, and I'm a civil engineer with a firm called Stantec. And we were engaged by Kevin and Dean to look at, how creative could we be? Let's flip the slide. So as Kevin laid out and as Dean laid out, there was an existing relationship on this piece of property but at the same time, we wanted to start thinking about a little bit out of the box. And we were aware that Concord was going through a zoning amendment, updating their zoning regs. And this Concord Next program really started to talk about, what is the character and the vision that we have for these neighborhoods of the future. So we really thought that was a great opportunity to embrace that, work with city staff, and come up with a vision on what this mixed-use development project could look like. How would it fit best? What's the piece of property that we want to at least enhance? And how do we go from there? You can flip to the next one. So we really started with this vision of what, and here's some precedent images that really started to set the tone on what the design team really wanted to consider. And these are just some examples of, trails along what potentially would be riverfront. Workforce housing examples. Open spaces that would really activate and create this living area. Boulevard type streets, not an industrial subdivision street, more something that's really creating a walkable community, and then sharing that with first floor retail, with residential. All of this was informing what we really wanted to look at. And the good thing is that as you hear how this process has really started pretty slowly, you'll see later on where we are in the schedule. We're here, we're just starting right here. And this is the important piece of getting feedback on what are some of the issues that you see? What's missing in Penacook? What can be added? And how do we address some of the needs that Kevin just talked about? So let's put this overall plan in context, and I'm just going to kind of point out a couple things. I-93 is to the south, so here's the Concord Monitor, existing Concord Monitor building and the Sewell's Falls Road and Bridge, Merrimack River, and up to Route 4. So this is the Concord Crossing Development Project. Fantastic. I got another peek at it this afternoon, so it's great to see how far that's come along. You guys have done a really great job at that. So this is going to put in context what we're really talking about, and part of this dashed line in here is this Whitney Road extension. It's a project that the City of Concord's been envisioning for a number of years. Here's our project right there at the south end. As Dean had mentioned before, there was a subdivision action that created or parceled out that area of the plan or the parcel, and now we're looking at this mixed-use development project as it sits along the riverfront. The next slide, please. So here's the project in a little bit closer upfront look. And you are looking at, these 5 primary uses in this mixed-use development project. And I'll just start from this side and make our way down. Again, Interstate 93 to the north is to the front here, or to the top, or to my right, your right. And 93 is at the bottom. So here's the Sewell's Falls Road and the Concord Monitor site. So looking as this would progress through, this is a self-storage facility, both indoor and outdoor. And that's that transition line between what would be mixed use, primarily residential, commercial, retail, and housing, as well as this transition that's getting you up into the more industrial uses that exist there today, which just north of this location is several of the manufacturing buildings and the incinerator building before you get to the new market basket of the Concord Crossing development. This is that mixed area, creating this proposed mixed-use center with green areas. So this is really a retail boulevard that potentially has retail on the first floor with residential on top, on stories 2, 3, and possibly 4. This is a workforce housing neighborhood, the market rate apartment neighborhood, and these saleable condos. It's interesting because I know that it might look like a lot of development here. This whole parcel is about 95 acres. And what's being proposed here is about 51 acres of development. So that's about 46% open space on this parcel. Just north in the Gateway Performance District, what's allowable is 80% lot coverage. So you can see how really we're preserving open space. What was really important with the vision from this design team here was, preserving that space along the river, staying away from that, creating undeveloped zones between the neighborhoods that really help to screen and protect. One of the biggest features that I really like about this, you can see this squiggly line, is just a riverside trail, and that follows around. There's about 2.2 miles of trail throughout the whole course of this property that would be available to the public. And I think it's a really huge, not only for the folks that would live in this neighborhood, but also outside folks that want to really appreciate that river resource. As I said, it's about 54% lot covered, so there's still a lot of open space that's out there. And in some of the areas that you see Riverfront Park, this small park area here, the green that's at that mixed-use center, also what we're calling Creekside Park, because Hayward Brook is along this area, as well as the green at the market rate apartments, and then the neighborhood park at the condos. That totals about a little over 4 acres of total interior park, of which about 2.4 acres, so nearly half of that, is available for public use. So the plan is really looking at how do we create a neighborhood that's well-balanced, that's really looking at what the city's zoning intent is moving toward. Is trying to create walkable neighborhoods, trying to create neighborhood connectivity, balance and appreciate the open space that's left. I think there's a lot of value here, and we'll talk about that in the slide coming up. Can you go to the next one? This is just really a conceptual perspective view, but we're just trying to capture what that street boulevard would essentially look like. You know, a narrow street with on-street parking, really with amenities and sidewalks that are wide enough that really appreciate that, and it's flanked by the buildings that are in here. This would be a section along, excuse me, along where the retail or the village greens, the village center would be. And we're just trying to, again, capture what would be really what we're facing. Go to the next one. So there's a lot of benefits that I think are really important, and we really want to hear from you tonight as well. But this public access to the river, it's a beautiful piece of property now, and we want to preserve that and maintain that. We also want to have an appreciable development that really balances all of that. And I mentioned before, a little more than 2 miles of walking trails. That's a great loop. You know, like we're trying to enhance the live, work, play model with being able to be self-contained neighborhood of sorts. 2.4 acres of new community open space. And, you know, it is zoned industrial, and I know that the city is working toward a goal of changing that zoning, similar to what they did for the Concord Crossing property. I think that was a great decision, and we're looking to continue that and create this mixed-use opportunity on this property. But it's certainly, the use is more appropriate than what we saw before, which was what's allowed by right, which would be large industrial box structures. More than $2 million in annual tax revenue. I'll leave that up to Dean to defend if it comes down to that. But I mean, it's property tax value, and that's what's really important on trying to stabilize a tax base with good positive development growth and the creation of hundreds of new jobs. You know, just the retail component. You can look at Concord Crossing, which is really a focus point on commerce in Penacook. Well, if there's 500 or so new jobs that are being created at that location, where is that residential support? It's coming from over 600 units potentially on this particular project. So I think we'll go to the next slide, which is really let's talk a little bit about a schedule, and you can change that. This is really high level, but of course a project like this would need to be phased. But, you know, and here we are right here. I mentioned that before. We're here. We're really at the design development, site analysis, and outreach. Outreach with you. We want to know if this is the right thing and what needs to be changed. This is a concept level plan. Hasn't gone anywhere. We're in the infancy, and I think this is a great place for us to be, is just to talk about this project. So through the summer of 2022, we want to really develop this concept together with you and with the city. We'll be engaged with the city throughout. and get toward a development agreement with the city and advance this project. So we're looking at a planning study, design, and approvals of 2022 through 2023 to allow us to get started. The initial thought here was phase one would really focus on that mixed-use commercial residential neighborhood. Again, that the area of the plan, and you'll see it again in a second, that's pink. Those buildings are first floor retail commercial with upper story residential. Really classic. You see some of that in Penacook Village today. You certainly see that in downtown Concord as well. Phase two would really work in, and if you see them overlap, there would be an overlap as we continue to advance the program. But that introduces the workforce housing neighborhood. And each of these are little neighborhoods that will continue to collaborate together. Townhomes, condos neighborhood, you saw that at the very end. That would come in at phase three, the self-storage facilities in phase four, and then we'd wrap up with the market rate housing neighborhood in phase five. That's how we would progress the project. Is that subject to change? Yeah, perhaps. You know, there's a lot that can happen between now and you know, the end of the line. We didn't set any specific dates. It's a little too early to set dates on this, but you can see how a project like this, as you've seen other projects in Penacook, how they've progressed along. This would follow that same logic. So that's really our project timeline at a really high level. We really want to hear from you now at this point, so if you could change that slide. Again, we'll leave it sitting here so that you can see and ask any questions, but there's the project. So I'm going to hand it back to Kevin, and Kevin can shepherd us through this.
All right.
So thank you all.
Thanks, Ed. That was a great walkthrough of the project. So, yeah, that's basically, you know, that's what we have. You know, as we said, we see the benefits from a local standpoint to beyond. So we're really looking to answer any questions that you may have or feedback that you have or whatever. So I'll just kind of open up the floor. If you want to just raise your hand, we'll just kind of call you out and go from there. Yep.
Yeah, in the first phase of this, or I guess I'm not sure which phase, but how many housing units? Roughly 600?
So I'll talk about that a little bit. So the kind of mixed-use center here would have about 120,000 square feet of commercial retail space. And on the upper levels of those buildings would be about 250 market rate apartment units. And that'll be kind of be phase one. Phase two, which would occur kind of simultaneously, but you know, maybe a construction start a little bit after, would be 120 units of workforce housing. And then subsequent to that, but again, starting kind of right off the same time as well, would be the 82 condo units for sale. All those types of housing don't compete with one another. And like I said, the only thing, we don't just need workforce housing, we don't just need McMansions, we really need the whole gamut of housing. So these three components don't really compete with one another, so we would bring those on, followed suit by the self-storage, and then once we see a good amount of absorption on the first kind of section of housing, then we would lead in and kind of wrap up, as Dean mentioned, with the market rate, which would be an additional 200 units. So all totaled, yes, it'd be about 650 units.
Just preference my comment or question to you. I like the whole concept. My first thought comes to mind is the school district here.
Yep.
How's that going to affect the school district? And are they going to be able to handle that once that project's complete?
Sure.
With the current size of this?
You know, that's a really good question. We were just talking about that before you came in. So, do you mind sharing the statistics of what the school population was before to what it is now?
Well, obviously the enrollment has gone down over the last 10 years. I believe October, and that's when the state does its enrollment for each school. This school is 315 students, give or take what comes in during the year or goes out. In 2012, there was 443 students here. So, is there space? Yes. And you know, you look at that in condos, you wouldn't think there'd be a whole lot of students. And I think it's too early to ask them although if you have an answer, by all means, throw it out there. How many students per unit, or how many students for the development? But, you know, you have to spread that through 3 schools, elementary, middle, and high school. So,
Right.
I don't speak for the school board of the school district. This doesn't blow me over as far as,
No, there's capacity to absorb
I think so.
based on what your projected
Yeah.
numbers might be for number of families that may have school-age kids.
Right, so, yeah, thanks for sharing those statistics. He had just mentioned them before we walked in. I knew there was capacity, but I didn't know that much. And that's true in almost every school district in New Hampshire. You know, the school numbers are going down. And part of the problem is you have fixed expenses to operate a school. You've got the maintenance staff, you have heat, insurance, groundskeeping, and so forth. And you have a teacher in front of a classroom, whether there's 20 students or 10 students in that classroom. So, and the other piece of it, though, is not all the funding from a school comes from the taxpayers. It also comes from grants from the state and from other locations, and those funds are based on the number of pupils. So even though you have all these fixed expenses, with a shrinking of student population, you can actually have the reverse effect of what most people think and have an increase in taxes as the student enrollment kind of declines. So, you know, we haven't done the exact numbers yet as far as what amount of kids we would bring into the school system. But there's been studies, and we printed one out here, and if anyone shares their email address on the handout sheet, we can share some of these statistics. But there's a professor named Richard England, sorry. And he did a study about the correlation of student enrollment and taxes on the city or any municipality. And he studied all 200 school districts throughout the state of New Hampshire. And it was found that there is no correlation between that. So, but as I mentioned, with a decline in population or school enrollment, it does typically lead to higher tax consequences to the residents of the community. So. I think I've seen your hand first.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
What's the future, what would be the future of the Monitor building under all of this?
That's a good question. I'm going to revert to Dean on that one.
Yeah, that is a very good question. I think in a lot of ways, so the Monitor building was purpose-built, right? So it's a great building. It's very well built, structurally, physically, but it was purpose-built. So convert the office building, you could convert it. Doesn't necessarily lend itself well for what Kevin initially was thinking of. The press building, that's a little different, right? So, but there has been interest in the Monitor building. We have continued interest in the building for various types of uses. I think this project will certainly help with the future, repurposing, adaptive reuse of that building. It's just a need. This would be a very significant catalyst. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I think
I'm thinking about traffic in that area.
Yep.
And what kind of car traffic would be brought into that very rural area.
Yeah.
And I mean, it will be access to exit 17, but
Mhm.
going in the other direction, the roads really are back roads.
Right. No, you're right, and that is something we do. We fully realize this will have an impact on traffic. We are adding a lot of housing there. We are sensitive to that issue. But so we're not at the point of being able to answer what the fix for that is. We'll obviously be doing traffic studies, and it'll dictate how to handle that. There's been a whole lot of studies done on the Route 4 and all the improvements they're doing over there. And those improvements were made largely in part with the understanding that this site would be developed in the future, because it was identified by the city as an area of interest to be developed. So that's been taken into account to some extent with those improvements done already on Route 4 and Whitney Road intersection. But there'll be more studies that'll have to be figured out for the other side as well. So.
Well, I'm thinking that not even considering the neighborhood, what the impact of all that traffic would have on the neighborhood to the south, but all those people getting in and out of one road, there's just one road going in each direction for work outside the residential areas. I just can't even imagine living there with only one road in and out.
Yeah, you know, sometimes it sounds daunting when you hear, you know, 650 units, that's a lot, but, you know, there's calculations to figure out the exact traffic count, what that will generate. And, you know, the assumption at this point, again, I don't have the engineering study to back that up, but the assumption is that a lot of that traffic flow will be down Whitney Road and then immediately right onto 93 to disperse north and south from that point, as opposed to going through the back roads that are existing. So that's where the bulk of the flow would come from, and that was studied and is part of that traffic study. And I think Ed may even...
HDR report.
Oh, yeah, there was an HDR report done on it. I don't know if you know the exact...
Yeah, the city commissioned a study a number of years ago that kind of looked at highest and best use of the area. And if I understand your question right, you know, you're thinking about that, you know, there's basically one spine road that connects to either end. You're concerned about the internal traffic issue that's related to the people coming and going with 600 units. It is it is a single road. Single roads do have, you know, a lot of capacity and distribution from, you know, whatever that is. You know, is it 50-50 that's going to go north or south? You know, we'll analyze that. That would need to be looked at. But, you know, the road segment itself would have the capacity. The issue is going to become the intersections and how are the intersections treated. And not only here, it's likely that the city would ask us to look at Sewell's Falls Road and, you know, the Mountain Road intersection at Sewell's Falls, and then Sewell's Falls at Abbott Road and further out. There's been a lot of study that's been done on the roundabout intersection, so I think they might have a lot of information on that, but we'd have to apply what's here. So that study would be done. So yeah, I think the concerning, you know, is really those intersection treatments and how do we keep those roads rural? You know, that's I think you mentioned that before. These are somewhat smaller roads. The road segment, we're pretty confident that, you know, the people coming and going from these neighborhood sections would have adequate capacity to come and go.
Question in the back first, sorry.
Thank you. So, two questions I'll start with. Will this project connect to exit 17? Will there be a road going from the project to Hoyt Road?
That's the intention, yes. Yep.
The other question is the workforce housing. Is that workforce housing as defined by state statute, or is that affordable housing?
So it's workforce. It's designed for for folks that essentially work. What it is the source of funding to finance those come from different sources, but the requirements of those funding sources essentially bring equity into the project to drive the cost of construction down. And then there's limits on how much you can charge for rent. And that's essentially what it is. And it allows for, you know, the service folks and teachers and, you know, firefighters and police officers to be able to find a place within the community that they can afford to rent.
So the workforce housing is defined by state statute, not affordable housing. There is a distinction.
Okay.
So, and then my last question is will you be asking the city for any tax incentives, such as putting this in tax incentive district, tax increment district?
So that is one of the things we are considering. We haven't gotten into those engagements with the city yet. Again, this is very conceptual, and that's why we're kind of here tonight to kind of talk about that stuff and think about it a little bit. But I know Ed has a little bit more information on that, so I'll let him kind of add to that.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we'll add that your first question was really, is this going to connect to exit 17? And it would be designed to do so. I think the city has always contemplated that Whitney Road would be extended at some point. It's in the current CIP. So we would be asking the city for their participation. And this is a road segment that, you know, we certainly control what's on our property. We don't control what's on this piece right here. So that becomes a really important decision-making and a conversation that we would need to have with the city. In order for that to move forward, we would think that the city would need to partner with this program to make it work.
So your project won't be connecting to this
Yeah, yeah, if you,
Context.
right.
Yeah, right, the other one. One more.
Go the other direction, sorry.
Keep going up, it's all right.
Keep going, now one more. Oh,
Yeah,
back one.
There we go.
Right there.
Put in context.
So yes, this kind of shows, so this is essentially the piece that we are acquiring right here. This is the 95 acres. We don't own this right now, and there is no road from here to here. Whitney Road Extension, of course, we all know ends right there. So yeah, that is the part that we still have to figure out.
Who does own that?
That's a good question. I'm,
Privately held.
Privately held.
yeah. I'm not sure who it is, but,
I think that the city has to be careful on the TIF. Merrimack Valley School District's getting pretty hard right now with the TIF as it is. And seeing as how this is all in Ward 1, we would certainly be looking for, obviously, some tax relief from this. Tom, I don't need to tell you that, and I'm certainly not.
I'm surprised about how much capacity you have, and that you're so welcome to receive so much new students.
More students means more staff.
The link, the Whitney Road Extension link becomes very, very important, and that's part of the, as I said, the partnership that we would be looking at with the city. This is an identified project, CIP 502, it's in their program now. We'd ask them to accelerate that and partner with this project in order to get this going. But we're early in those conversation stages, not to put staff on the spot, but you know, we'll be having the conversation of how that ties into the development program.
another question right here?
I had a question on, related to that Whitney Road access.
Yep.
And the walkable community. Well, are you keeping in mind bicycle traffic and safety of bike lanes or?
Sure, yeah, that's,
Especially-
well, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Oh, and I'm also concerned about getting on a bicycle from that community to the Whitney Road and then off into exit 4, because that's very, it's really dangerous.
Yeah, no,
Now.
that's very good input. You know, we haven't gotten to the point of drawing that road, but, you know, that's one of the pieces of input that we're really looking for tonight. So that's an important piece, it sounds like, and, you know, that's something that we can definitely look at.
And it will be accessible, I live on Sewell's Falls Road.
Yep.
Will I be able to travel through there?
Yes, that's yep, that would be the intention, which may actually take some pressure off Mountain Road from that standpoint where, you know, it may be an access point through to the new development that's happening right now at Concord Crossing, so.
When they were developing Oxbow Bluff, we went to meetings and we were assured that we'd be able to walk through that area. And as soon as the houses went up, the no trespassing signs.
Sure. Well, you know, and that's a very good point. So if, like, you know, what Dean had presented before, it could have been a big, huge industrial building, and I guarantee there'd be gates on both ends of that, and the public could get nowhere near that beautiful river frontage. Our intention is to keep that open for public use, not just for this development, but for everybody in Penacook. So, you know, I heard somebody was telling me, I apologize for who it was, but talking about how they like to bike every single day. Well, that's a 2-mile loop of trails right along the river. I mean, you know, whether you bike or walk or whatever, it's a great amenity that doesn't exist right now, but will exist with the development of this project. Yeah, another question right here?
Yeah, I just want to ask about the market rate apartments that you're
Yep.
talking about. So about in the pink area, you have possibly 2 or 3 floors of market rate apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And then, is it the orange section that was some additional market rate that you're talking about?
Yeah, yep, exactly.
You were talking at the beginning about rents being so high now.
Yeah.
that it's driving people out of town
Yeah,
that can't afford, and I'm not talking about, workforce housing, but, there's young couples that can't afford $2,000 a month in rent.
mm-hmm.
And if market rate is bringing it up to 2,000, is there something you can do to make it affordable for those younger couples that can't spend 2,000?
Right. So that's a very,
Buy homes here.
right. Well, and that's a huge point, right? And what did I say at the beginning about, so 1 out of every 333 apartments is available right now. So when a landlord has 15 applications available for rent, what do? It's supply and demand. It's all basic economics, right? It creates rents going up. So when we bring more housing into this area, it doesn't mean that there's going to be 650 people from out of the community that moves into this project. There's going to be people that live within this community that may want to leave where they're currently renting, which would then create an available unit in, right, potentially in the village that may be priced lower than, one of these market rate units or whatever. But just by bringing the overall supply to the market, even if it doesn't bring rents down, it will certainly flatten the curve from where it's going, because if nothing is done, the rents are going to get to the point where nobody can afford them. It's right here in the front.
I see on the map above the condos, I'll say,
Yep.
there are 2 colored blocks along the edge of the river.
Right here and here, yeah.
What are they?
So we have a beautiful river there. So we want to try to provide some access. And that's kind of what that is. Of course, it's on the shoreline. It's, within the setback. So we'd have to be working with the state and through DES. But the intention is to be able to get some access to the river. Yeah, and over here.
This is an input for you. When they built Penacook Landing, which is in town where the tannery was,
Yep.
they said, we're going to do retail on the first floor and then apartments.
Mm-hmm.
There was no market for retail on the first floor, so they couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, the market basket area is not fully full of retail,
Yep.
and neither is downtown,
Mm-hmm.
and neither is Penacook Village.
Right.
So I'm curious as to why you're looking at retail and not just town.
Well, we're looking at a lot of uses, not just specifically retail. And, the types of shops may be, a barber or a coffee shop, or, that the tenant mix we're still trying to figure out, but it'll be much different than the Rossios did with their project. It's a different type of commercial retail type of tenant that would be looking at for this particular property.
Yeah,
So.
if I can comment on that
Yeah.
also. So the Rossios project is coming along. It's taken a while to get where it is, right? So retail has been recovering from, the effects of the last couple of years, right? But it is recovering and it's starting to accelerate. So we're seeing throughout the state retail centers that really sat dormant or vacant for a period of time. Actually, they're starting to fill again. So what our vision is for this sort of mixed-use center is sort of destination spots where initially you're going to look at maybe a micro brew house, like I'm not saying 603 Brewery, but something like that. I'd love to have them come in, but I don't want to commit them to anything. Right? So but that type of establishment, so cafes, bakeries, so that sort of things that they're going to be enjoyed by the not only the residents of this mixed-use center, but by people from outside. So if the restaurant's good, it's going to draw people in from outside. So with it's sort of like Market Basket, right? So as soon as Market Basket sort of establishes a location, then the rest sort of fills in pretty darn quick thereafter, right? I mean, they have it dialed in, they have it figured out. So while I agree that is it 110,000 square feet? Is it 80,000 square feet? I'm not sure. We're not sure yet. Again, very formative. We're in the conceptual stages now. But there are some groups that I've been talking to that have an interest in this particular this mixed use center specifically. So think that the concept here, I guess, is something similar to, you know, Tuscan Village in Salem, a much smaller scale, you know, quarter scale, 1/10 scale, a little bit smaller. But if you've ever been there, if you've ever seen it, you know, it draws people in. People go there, you know, they may not live there, but they'll go there for the restaurants, they'll go there for the retail. So we're still dialing that in, we're still trying to figure that out, but there's already interest, and, you know, we're still in the conceptual phase, so.
Thanks, Dean. Right here? Oh, okay, sorry.
A couple questions.
Yep.
One was about the acreage between, say, the Monitor building and where the project starts. I don't have the scale.
Right in here?
Kind of, yeah. The
Yep.
I just don't know.
Oh, what's in here? So there's a brook that runs through there, and then there's some steeper slopes, whereas most of all this is all flat. So, of course, there's wetlands we'd have to keep back from, and then if there's slopes that are too steep, they're undevelopable. Again, we still haven't even gotten the full survey done yet on this. It's in process. The wetland delineation is in process, but not 100% complete yet. And the geotech to find out what the soils that we'd be sitting on is not yet complete. So that's why this is so conceptual. You know, this is a great plan. We want it to stay like this, but things may have to get shifted one way or the other, or reconfigured to some extent, depending on once those studies are completed. So.
My second question was about the water situation.
Yeah.
Because I'm, say, in between the highways and Mountain Avenue,
Mm-hmm.
Mountain Road. So my question is, we were told that the water only came up to the bridge and that was it.
So
What about the public water? Is that going to be drawn over to the other side, or does it exist over there?
well, I'll let Ed answer that one.
There's actually a water main that goes through this property today, and it loops all the way up toward where Whitney Road meets Route 4. So that water supply would be used to also design the water support here. So it would be on municipal water.
The sewer line, though, I think ends at Sewers Falls Road, right? Just across the bridge?
Yeah, the sewer really ends right around this intersection, just up station from the intersection. And this, you know, understanding that, you know, sewer is somewhat of a challenge in Penacook Village, because some of it goes to the Penacook plant. This actually crosses when the bridge was built, you know, there was sewer main was upsized, water main was upsized on both of those for future capacity, for probably a host of reasons, including this. But this sewer would go to the Concord plant through the interceptor. So there's certainly capacity there as well.
So there's a capacity, and then it'd be the water and the sewer fees that would be accumulated for that additional capacity too. So another benefit of the project would be that. So, yep.
I also have a couple of questions.
Okay.
How many bedrooms are you anticipating in the various apartments?
So that's a good question. We're still programming that out. You know, we've got to do a little bit more market studies on that, but our inclination right now is going to be a mix of studios, 1s and 2s. There may be some 3 bedrooms that we do program into that, but the focus would be studios, 1s and 2s.
I guess I would just, as a comment, urge you to have more bedrooms rather than less. And then the storage piece, I guess, I know you want it as a buffer, but from a streetscape standpoint, it stinks.
I've got a good answer for that, but I'll let you finish your question.
So, and there's plenty of storage spaces that we have in Concord, so erring on the side of housing, I guess I would comment, I would prefer to see housing.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. As far as, so I'm not sure if you've seen like there's a couple different companies like Bluebird or Lifestyle, U-Haul does some, where it kind of looks like an office building facade, multi-level, maybe 3, 4 levels with interior climate controlled storage. So that's essentially what this bigger block would look like. And then the more traditional drive-up self-storage, which is what you're referring to with an abundance of, there would be some of that, but it'd be a little bit further back. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
And which I use.
Oh, okay, well, good. And all these folks may use it as well, so.
But, yeah, I just would,
Yeah.
because the housing crisis is so acute, I guess I would like to see as many
Yeah.
resources as possible. But-
Well, and I appreciate you saying that because I am very passionate about housing as well. That's our main focus. But it also lends itself to a great transition into the more industrial, then storage is a little bit more kind of residentially, and then you got kind of the mixed use center area there, and then strictly all housing to the south side of the lot. So it was kind of thought out in that transition kind of way, but you know, you're right, we do need more housing. Yeah, in the back here.
Thanks. I guess I'll put them as comments. When building, you've got a great opportunity with the built environment to really minimize energy demand, you know, whether it's super insulation or, you know, the tight windows and all that, which of course makes a difference in heating and cooling costs
Sure.
as well as energy use. So maximizing that, you know, I think has a pretty positive ROI. And the other thing is I love the idea of, I don't know if you're considering how it would work, but however many thousands of square feet of roofs going up there, wouldn't it be nice to stack some solar on it?
Yeah.
And I realize there's statewide limitations in the net metering and that thing, but if the economics are positive, you know, there's people that will invest and then you pay them back through the savings, right?
Yeah.
The last thing I'll throw out is I've seen, I've been down to Hilton Head a couple of times, and even the Woodlands in Texas, and these are both planned communities where
Yep.
they started from scratch and did kind of what you're doing. And
Yeah.
they, you know, have things like bike paths that curve, so it's not a straight line, and they have so many trees placed around, you don't even know where the buildings are. So I
Right.
know you're limited on space compared to those size of developments, but I would say it's a great opportunity to really bring a dream of today and the future to fruition in what is truly a remarkable location.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. Both of those points are very good. So I'll just touch on the energy efficiency. So New England Family Housing is an Energy Star builder. We are registered with the Energy Star program. Every project that we do, we always take energy efficiency into account. One, for the ROI, and it's environmentally the best way to do things. And then as far as the solar piece of it, that's definitely something that we're looking at as well, because you're right, there is a ton of rooftop there. Why not take advantage of that? And then to your point about kind of the urban planning is kind of what they call what you're referring to, where you can kind of look at the whole thing. So that's what got us so excited about this property. It's a beautiful property. You know, when you stand here looking across at the lands over here, it's great. I couldn't imagine it being ruined by an industrial building. But we had this blank slate with 95 acres. We're like, how can we make this so it is kind of a live, work, play environment, and to be able to take care of some of that stuff. So if you notice, there is so much green space for that exact reason. So you can kind of meander through the development, and yes, the buildings will be there and they need to be there, but there'll be ways to get through that, you know, in a way that's you know, kind of like what you're talking about. So yeah, thanks for those comments. Yep.
Would you consider inquiring about having the Concord City bus system make a few stops in there?
Yes. That's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's, and if with connectivity, Whitney Road is extended, right now, there's bus transportation, but there's not another loop opportunity. This creates a loop opportunity that could answer that. Great point.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, right here.
Hi, yes.
Hi.
I also like to suck up the idea of sustainable and the green space. I really like that.
Yeah.
Now, I think in your presentation, you said you estimated about $2 million in tax revenue.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with that calculation, and are there any similar developments done with success in New England, other than Massachusetts, because they have a lot of spaces like this?
Yeah.
That would kind of support that kind of revenue calculation?
Sure. I'm going to revert to Dean on that one. He definitely has been looking into that.
I did see that coming. So essentially what we did is we took, you know, each component, so 82 for sale home townhouses, market rate apartments, and the commercial space, et cetera. So we took each of those components and broke it out into, you know, what would,
Anybody want my password?
You want me to do this?
I hate my job.
1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. So we took each component and did a quick analysis of, you know, a townhome, typically in the city of Concord, trades for X number of dollars. So when you take 82 times that typical trade value, that gives you, and we deducted a fair amount, you know, because the assessor's going to hit pretty hard. That's for you, Matt. We essentially calculated that way. So what do we project to be the assessed value? And you know, we multiplied the tax rate against that, and so we came up with what we project to be at least, you know, in that $2 million plus range, you know, based on the total value of you know, the assessed value. So that's on an annualized basis.
Yeah, right here, standing up in the back.
Oh, thanks. I don't want to steal too much time from residents, but following up on that, can you walk through a price point for your first 250 market rate apartments? So you're talking $2,000 to $3,000 a month-ish, or can you say, and I'd like you to go through, maybe we'd like the townhouses to be price point at X. If you've already done the math for 82, do you have a rough idea of?
So we did the math based on the assessed value, not necessarily the market rate of the apartment rents per se. From my perspective, we're still preliminary. You know, it's still early.
Yeah.
We've started those analyses. We have data points. We've continued to collect the data points as far as rents, market rent apartments in Concord and Greater Concord, and comparing that to the rest of the state. But from my perspective, we're a little early to tell you that, oh, you're going to have an apartment between this rate and this rate per month. But maybe Kevin has thoughts on that.
Well, no, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, we haven't hit that yet. However, we are going to hit the whole range of housing, right? Because we've got the workforce housing, which will have the rents not dictated by us, but by the funding sources. And then we'll have the market rate, which will be a scaled up, where, you know, the mixed use center here will probably be priced differently than the market apartments here. So again, you'll slide up the scale, and then you'll have the condos here, where again, these may even be priced a little bit differently from on the sale piece, you know, because these may have some better views or whatever. So we're really trying to, you know, hit that whole scale of housing from the workforce right on up. So.
A real quick follow-up, in your Bedford, Londonderry, or Portsmouth projects, do you have workforce housing there, and what are those prices?
Those are our projects, and the short answer is no. We have, well, in Portsmouth, if you understand Portsmouth, you can't afford to build workforce housing without substantial assistance.
So New England Family Housing does not have any workforce projects now on any of your portfolio?
No, that's not true. We developed a project in Bristol, and we developed one in Concord. Sorry, not Concord, in Claremont.
And what are those price points?
Boy, I don't know. I'd have to ask my staff on that. Yeah, in the back.
Thanks again. So $2 million is an impressive number for the taxes. But even assuming that there are no new costs to the schools, there's going to be increased costs for roads. We could anticipate maybe, I'm just picking a number out there, 2,000 plus trips a day coming in and out of that project with 600 units and commercial spaces. So additional traffic, additional safety costs for police, fire, medical care, recreation, and other infrastructure costs. Over the last number of years, pick a number 10, 20 years, just in commercial value, assessed value, has lost $60 to $70 million in assessed values in commercial properties. So my questions are, what type of jobs and salaries are you going to generate? What will the cost of the project be? And the timing of development. Would you be willing to balance the timing of development with residential and commercial so that one doesn't outweigh the other, so that we don't further throw the community out of balance from a tax perspective and a service perspective?
Yeah.
The demanding cost for services.
Sure. Yeah, those are all good questions. So as far as, phasing the development, Ed did touch on that, and I spoke to it a bit as far as, beginning with the mixed-use center here where, the commercial would be on the lower levels and the apartments up above. So some of that commercial space will get constructed prior to the residential. But before that even comes online, the workforce housing component will begin construction. And the construction period time frame for this is probably about 18 months. So it'll come online prior to this being online. Once this is underway, we're conceivably starting to build the condos as well. And this product is sold as it's built. So, you build kind of this building here, get some sales here, and kind of work your way right around. And the construction of these condos is a much shorter time frame than even this here. So, all these things will be kind of start here, followed by here, then here, but this product may be coming available before this, and then this before this. So it'll all kind of mix together, so it will be overlapped, and it will be brought on kind of as we go. As far as jobs and so forth, so there'll be the retail components that we left here, that we talked about here. There'll be the staff that's going to be required just for, maintenance and management and everything else of all of these facilities here. So that'll be a bulk of staff there. Let alone the construction workers that'll be here. It's going to have a huge boost to the local economy just from, people shopping locally, spending money locally on lunch breaks and so forth, throughout the duration of the construction projects. And construction jobs are generally pretty high-paying jobs. As far as total cost of the project, we're still, of course, working on those estimates, but we're thinking between 150 and 200 million by the time it's all done.
So if I could just follow up, so once the project's completed, not during the construction, but once it's completed, will the majority of the new jobs created, will those workers be able to live in any of the units other than the workforce housing?
I can't answer that question right now, but I'll let you know once we get a little bit further along.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, right here.
Thank you very much for this. It's going to be important, I think, that you continue with your outreach to the public, especially here in Penacook,
Yep.
on what's going on. I know there'll be a number of public hearings by the time you get through planning board and city
Right.
council and like that, but I would just urge you to continue when you have something as it goes on.
Sure. Well, message well received, and that is exactly why we're here today. I mean, we haven't, we've very preliminary, before we even were under contract, had a meeting with city staff. But this essentially is the first meeting that we have where we're introducing this project. And as I mentioned, there was a sign-up sheet that went around, and if anybody, wanted to include their email address on that, we would, be happy to share information as we go along. And yes, I mean, I'm hoping we can convince Councilman Todd to help us, arrange something like this again as we get a little bit further along. So yeah, definitely. I mean, we definitely want to stay involved. We're, here, we're local, we're in for the long haul and want to work with you. So absolutely.
Thank you. There's no tar and feathers yet.
Well, thank you. I like my skin.
Boiling tar up there.
One comment with that also is we also plan to, at some point when it's appropriate, as we start to gel a little bit more and we get more public feedback, set up a project's website so that people can go to and can exchange information, and maybe a Facebook page, et cetera. So, and continue the public outreach. So this is the first of what we hope of several.
Have you considered the effects of the construction and everything that's going to be going on the river itself and protecting the river? Because the Merrimack River over the years has undergone a lot of cleanup and a lot of and a lot of people use that river, and so I would not want to see it get spoiled.
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, I just floated down a river this past weekend with our family, and And I get it. Using that river and to keep it clean is super important. Now, there's a 200-foot buffer where we can't do anything within that river. But on top of that, throughout the construction process, through the shoreline permitting that we'll have to do through DES, as well as the AOT, the alteration of terrain permitting, there's strict guidelines on what you have to do to protect that. And so you get it approved and you set up all your barriers and things, so no pollution, no runoff, no stormwater, anything gets into the river. But then there's also what's called a SWIP report, and you could probably tell me what the acronym is for. But what happens is a third-party engineer comes out on a weekly basis and inspects that entire barrier to ensure that it didn't fall over, a tree didn't fall on it in the past storm and break it, and no one knows about it. So yeah, we definitely take that at heart as keeping things clean, so.
Yeah, because I would love to see the access to, for the entire public to be able to continue to use the river and for it to, continue its progression and being clean.
Yeah, we actually see this as an extension, it is an extension to the Sewell's Falls trails as well. So it's not quite the same distance, right? I know it's 24, 25 miles in total, but this will add another couple miles to it, 2.2 miles or so.
Yeah. Another question? Any more? There must be more. No? Well, if that's it, I just want to thank you guys for your input, for listening to us. I hope you can tell we're passionate about this and we're into it for the long haul, and we're super excited. I mean, we just, feel there's a ton of benefits for all the reasons we just mentioned. So we'll definitely be communicating more. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank Kevin Lacasse, Ed Roberge, and Dean Averoli for coming here and giving us all this information. I also thank you for all your openness and being able to really give us some great visuals so we can start to get an idea of what the concept is and really start us to think about it. I'm sure that the information in the slides you'll make available to the folks that signed up on the email messages and so forth, so that'll be forthcoming. And then to answer your question, I'm sure the PVA would be more than happy to assemble another meeting like this, as many as you want, at a time where you've got more information to present, and then we can all be involved in the continuing ongoing process on this, which would be great. Just wanted to make a quick note also I'm going to thank Art Ellison again because I missed him the first time, so he gets a double mention. But I do also want to note that Councillor Fennessy is here, Councillor Kretovic is here also, our Mayor Boulay is here, our City Manager Thomas Spell is here, and also PVA Board Member Chris Miller is here as well. So thank you all also for coming. And also just want to note that David and Lori Rossi are here as well. And so if I get this wrong, you'll correct me, but I believe that we have a soft opening for the liquor store tomorrow. Is that right? Tomorrow. So the... Yeah, well, let the party begin, I guess, right, is what we're saying? Yes.
Is it true that Dave and Lori are buying tomorrow?
Oh, is that right? I missed that part.
I heard they were buying for everyone.
Dave and Lori are buying for everyone. Well, thank you so much. That's so nice of you. You'll be sure to see all of us there. I can guarantee that. That's right. Yes. And there'll be some more announcements. I know you're all waiting to hear about when the market basket is opening, and we'll have that announcement shortly. But we are still hoping that it will be toward the end of August. So very, very soon. So with that, thank you again to everybody. Thank you all for coming. Have a good evening, and we'll be back in touch soon about this.